Well, hello, hello, hello. It's Dr. Sasheen. And yes, we're a little bit late on the sixth day of Vlogmas, but I wanted to get it done, even if it's after midnight and technically the seventh day. We're not going to tell anybody. So, welcome to the sixth day of Vlogmas. This is going to be short and sweet, but I definitely want to make sure that I got it done um, because it's actually the topic today is 40 is the new 40. And this one doesn't require me to say a ton about it, but it kind of does. I have this wonderful book on my shelf called Naked. As a matter of fact, I'm going to grab it. Hang on a second. Okay. So I have this wonderful book. I've had this wonderful book, Naked, for years. I don't even remember when I got it, but I've kept it because of the story. So it's Naked. Black women bear all about their skin, hair, hips, lips, and other parts. And I remember getting this book. Hang on. I remember getting this book. It was given to me, and it was after a talk that was given by the editors, Ayana Bird and Akiba Solomon. And I was in grad school getting my PhD a little later in life. So I was one of an older student. I was in my 30s and, was was in the younger cohort. But it was such a grand experience because I got to do something I'd never done in the years before in getting my degrees. I'd had to work every time, and I had to work this time too, but I got a fellowship, which allowed me to not have to work during the school year and also not have to take out loans during the school year. And so I was able to really embrace the experience of just attending talks and going to things that having a college experience for the first time in my life, even though I had 2 degrees ahead of that. Anyway, the point is the idea of 40 being the new 30. In this book, there was this, see if I can find it. I may not be able to find it, but there was this one vignette, as I call it, and it, gosh, I don't think I'm going to be able to find it. Only because I don't know exactly what the name of it is. But if I was smart, I dog-eared it because I liked, there it is. And it was called Flesh is Best by Jill Nelson. And it talks about coming into your own with your body. And it talks about her as a sexual being, a sexual creature. Um, and the way that being free allowed her to feel in ways that a lot of women don't get a chance to. Yeah, I've read this book so much the pages are coming out of it. Okay, that's how much I love this book. But it allowed her vignette really talks about feeling free in a way that most women never get the chance to because they are boxed in um, and they're closed down by expectations, prescriptions, descriptions of who they are and who they're supposed to be. So, on this sixth day of Vlogmas, I want you to embrace what being 40 or above really means. They say 40 is the new 30. It's not. What's happening is that 40 is not the old 40. It's not that it's the new 30. 50 isn't the new 40. It's that 40 isn't the old 40 anymore. Like 40 years ago just doesn't exist anymore. Um, when women were coming into their 40s in the 1950s, it looked different. When they were coming into their 40s in the 1990s, it looked different. Coming into our 40s in the 2000s looks different. So 40 is just the new 40. And that's awesome because we can watch the progression of conscious change happening in women as they realize who they are when their vessel, this thing here, the body, the spirit, the energy embraces a certain age. Jill Nesbitt talks about her body as it aged through her sexuality and being in that feeling of freedom, of feeling free, of being in control of her own self. And I think for so many women, we've never been in control of our own self. When I look through TikTok and I look through Facebook, to some degree Instagram, not as much. I'm not a big Instagram lover. But I'm amazed and astounded at the level of how many women are still in that trap of their mind that 40 and beyond must look like it did 10 years ago, must look like it did 20 years ago. That's crazy. I'm so moved and inspired by the women who I follow who are 40, most of which are 40 and over, because that's my crowd, who are starting businesses, who are traveling the world, who are writing novels, who are starting gardens, and who are looking around at their life and going, I am experiencing a freedom in my 40s that I couldn't have in my 20s. Now, we could have had it in our 20s, but if you're in your 40s, you're Gen X, and you were in your 20s as a Gen Xer, and things were different. The prescriptions on our life looked different. For a lot of women, you were still trying to get married and have a family because that's what you thought you were supposed to do. I wasn't one of those people. I got married, promptly got divorced. That was a mistake. Um, um, but the new 40 that everyone's talking about, all the magazines and people are so worried about what we're doing in our 40s, women in our 40s, what are we doing? They're concerned about women in their 20s because they're not having enough kids. They're concerned about the women in their 40s because we're saying no to a lot of things. And that's because we're in our 40s in the 2020s. We're not in 1990 anymore. We're not even in the year 2000 anymore. We're 20 some years past that. We're in our 40s at a time when there's so much out there, so many opportunities, so many possibilities. And even if we just took the smallest slice of the pie of possibility that the world is in 2022, that is an entire pie for women in their 40s in the 1950s. Like the small slices of things that we think about now that we could possibly do, women in their 40s, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s couldn't dream of doing it. And so 40 is the new 40. Your 40 is so different than your mother's 40 and your grandmother's 40 and your best girlfriend's 40. It is new to you. And I encourage you as you go into this holiday season to think about what is 40 going to mean? What are the 40s, the 50s, the 60s in the year 2022, 2023, 2024? What are they going to look like? What are the possibilities that I'm actually able to embrace? Because I'm 40 now in a time period that didn't exist for my predecessors, my ancestors, right? This kind of time didn't exist. I mean, there are some problems with it. I'm not glossing over it. But there's also this profoundly wondrous feeling to be in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, especially for women when we're living longer. Excuse me. When we're loving deeply ourselves more, when we're making conscious choices about freeing who we are to be who we are. There's a it's interesting to me to watch the push and pull against people trying to wear their identities on TikTok and to some degree on Twitter. Mostly on TikTok is where I see it. There is an aesthetic, very feminine, flowy group of people, group of women who talk about who love that beautiful aesthetic of the flowing feminine dress and the flowing beautiful hair and the delicate makeup, and they get so much pushback for not being a modern woman. And I find it so funny because I'm like, the idea that modern women have to that there's any definition of that, first of all. But number 2, we're all literally on an app. We are literally on an app talking to each other across the globe in real time. And you're mad because this woman wants to wear a poofy dress? This is crazy to me. I celebrate K-pop out of a country I'll never visit and frilly beautiful dresses on beautiful black skin and pastel colors that I think are just beautiful living in England and my friends in Maryland and the ones who live in Puerto Rico and the ones in Germany. Like, in real time, we are creating identities with each other. And in our 40s, instead of embracing the diminishment of others because they don't fit what we think a 40-year-old should fit, look inside and see if you are living the 40 that you want to live. What's your 40? What does that look like? What's your 50? What is it going to look like? What does it look like now? Is it time to make some changes? Is it time to bring some things out that maybe got shoved to the back? Wherever you are in the journey of your timeline, what I hope is that as Vlogmas and Christmas and the holidays roll around, Yule and all that rolls around, solstice and all that rolls around, and you get ready to take your journey around the sun. And I say this because it's December the 7th, and technically this is supposed to be the 6th, but shh, my son turns 10 tomorrow. And I'm contemplating what it's like to have a 10-year-old. 10 years ago, I made a decision, a choice to bring a life into this world, to hold him in abeyance in my body, and then to let him out into the world and to do for that child, to guide him and to bring him up and to show him the way. And I realized that as every decade passes, because he's now in his first, he's just hit his first decade mark. It's his first 10. As every decade passes, he will become someone else. And so will I. And together we'll become different people together until we're separate, until he goes his own way and chooses to make his way without me, without mom. Don't want to think about that. But his first decade just got here. Like he just finished it. And I was front row seat. And my first decade as a mom also is coming to an end. Front row seat. What is the second decade going to look like? I don't know, but motherhood in my 40s in 2022, light years different than it would have looked like in 1950 or even 1990. And I, for one, am embracing the possibilities of everything that come along with that. So hopefully that's some food for thought tonight, this morning, whenever you watch it. Leave a comment if you're interested. Let me know that you're listening. Also, if you don't yet, go on over to Facebook and like my page, The Anxiety Solution by Dr. Sasheen and Dr. Sasheen. Also, if you want a group to belong to, Women Starting Over Life After 40, come on in and say hello. And if you're interested in learning how to take your journaling to the next level, you want to learn how to journal for anxiety reduction and energy alignment, join my next journaling class. Right now, for the rest of the year, it's only $10 to get a seat, but there are only 35 seats available. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I will definitely see you today again for the 7th day. But have a good 6th day. Bye now.